Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to each one of you. We would like to inform our Honorable Chief Guest has arrived at the venue, would be joining us any moment now. May we request everyone to kindly join us inside the hall and kindly take their seats, be comfortable. All mobile phones to be kept onto silent mode from now onwards, please. Everyone to kindly be seated. We are waiting the arrival of our Honorable Chief Guest, who has arrived at the venue, would be joining us any moment now. Seated. Our dignitaries will be joining us any moment now. Let's put our hands together to welcome our Honorable Chief Guest, Guest of Honor, and other dignitaries who have joined us. And ladies and gentlemen, to begin the proceedings of the conference today, I have the proud privilege in inviting on stage our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji, Chairman, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, Government of India, to kindly grace the stage with his august presence. Let's put our hands together to welcome sir. I will invite our guest of honor, Shri A. Robert Gerard Ravi, CMD BSNL, to kindly grace the stage. Warm welcome, sir. I invite Mr. Rahul Vats, Chief Regulatory Officer, Bharti Airtel, not here. Mr. Thomas Ota, Senior Director, Head of Submarine Sales Department, Submarine Network Division, NEC. Warm welcome. I invite Mr. Scott Colling, Director Network Investments, Meta. Warm welcome. I invite Mr. Amarjeet Gupta, Group CEO and MD, Lightstrom. I invite Ms. Sonia George, Executive Director, GDIP, Ms. Aruna Sundararajan, Chairperson, BIF, and Mr. Shivnath Chukral, Vice President, BIF. Namaskar and good morning, and a very warm welcome to the first International Subsea Cable Systems Conference in India. On behalf of the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership and Broadband India Forum, it is my honor to welcome our distinguished dignitaries. Our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji, Chairman TRI, esteemed guest of honor, Shri A. Robert Gerard Ravi, CMD BSNL, respected speakers and dear delegates. We thank you all for joining us today for this important conference on the theme, Impact of Subsea Cable Systems on the Indian Digital Economy. Subsea cable systems are the backbone of global connectivity, carrying the vast majority of the world's data across oceans. The impact on India's digital economy is transformative, enabling our nation's connectivity, growth, and innovation. And today's conference, the first of its kind in India, will explore how these undersea networks shape our digital future. To begin the proceedings, I would like to request Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, President BIF, to do the honors of welcoming Honorable Chief Guest Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji with the floral bouquet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor that this first of its kind conference is graced by Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji as the Honorable Chief Guest. And very, very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you, TV sir, for doing the honors. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin the inaugural session and to formally welcome the August gathering, I have the privilege to invite Ms. Aruna Sundararajan, Chairperson BIF, for the welcome address. Ms. Aruna Sundararajan, the former Secretary to the Government of India, is a pioneering technocrat who led transformative digital and telecom policies during her tenure, shaping India's digital future. Let's put our hands together to welcome Ma'am for her welcome address.
Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji, Chairperson TRI, Shri Robert Ravi, CMD BSNL, esteemed industry friends on the dais, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, President BIF, other distinguished representatives from the government, industry, and friends from the media. At the outset, a very good morning to all of you. It is a privilege and an honor to be here today to deliver this welcome address at the inaugural International Conference on Subsea Cable Systems in India. I would like to compliment the Broadband India Forum for choosing this important subject for this conference today. We are living in an era marked by geopolitical upheavals and an unprecedented surge in data consumption, whether through mobile networks or fixed-line broadband. And it is in this context that the subject of subsea cable systems assumes paramount importance. As all of us know, subsea cables are the lifeline of global telecommunications. 99% of international data transmission, whether it is for business, personal, or governmental use, passes through these international subsea cables. With 559 submarine cable systems spanning over 1.4 million miles across the globe, and 1,636 cable landing stations, they facilitate trillions of dollars worth of financial transactions daily, support sensitive government communications, enable voice calls, and transmit vast volumes of internet data. India, with its strategic location, is an integral player in this network. India hosts 17 international subsea cables, terminating at 14 distinct cable landing stations across 5 cities. These are Mumbai, Chennai, Cochin, Tuticorin, and Trivandrum. The lit capacity and the activated capacity of these cables stood at 138.6 Tbps and 111.11 Tbps respectively. More importantly, several new international cable systems are under development in India, amongst MIST, IAX, IEX, 2 Africa EMIC-1, Blue Raman, CME V6, and so on. On the domestic front, initiatives like the Chennai, Andaman and Nicobar cable, CANI, and the Kochi Lakshadweep Island, KLI cable systems are enhancing connectivity to our remote islands. Despite all this, it is significant to note that India's share presently constitutes around 1% and 3% respectively for cable landing stations and subsea cable systems. This is indeed very modest when we note that India has the second largest phone numbers and largest population and one of the highest data consumption rates in the world. It is estimated that India should rightfully have 10 times the number of existing cable landing stations and 4 to 5-fold capacity of subsea cables as we go forward. It is to discuss this challenge that this international conference is being organized. Recent global incidents have also highlighted another major aspect, which is not just the critical importance of these subsea cables for all kinds of transactions, global trade, financial transactions, and indeed the internet. What has happened is that in the recent past, we have seen a number of incidents when subsea cable systems have been under attack. In 2023, submarine cables critical to internet connectivity for Taiwan were severed, leaving about 14,000 residents digitally isolated for as long as 6 weeks. More significantly, in the Baltic Sea, damage to a telecom cable connecting Sweden and Estonia and other countries was disrupted, underlining the susceptibility of such systems. The Red Sea and the South China Sea, which are already a major choke point for undersea cables, given the density of cables there, have faced major disruptions as recently as last year, affecting 25% of data traffic between Asia and Europe. As you can imagine, 25% is a very substantive chunk of activity. In the background of the above instances, it is important for us to note and to appreciate the pivotal importance of cable landing stations and the subsea cables. And it is vital to see that these are resilient and protected, both by individual countries and the global community. In November 2024, that is just a few months ago, the ITU, the UN Agency for Digital Technologies, and the International Cable Protection Committee, the ICPC, have come together to form the International Advisory Body for Submarine Cable Resilience to strengthen the resilience of this vital communication infrastructure. And with the advent of AI, and given that people are already saying that AI is the next horizontal technology, like electricity, it is no longer a vertical technology, the importance of ensuring the resilience of these cables becomes that much more critical. It is both intriguing and alarming that already devices have been showcased which are capable of severing deep sea cables at depths of up to 4 kilometers. These kinds of tools are designed to target heavily armored cables, protected by layers of steel, rubber, and polymer sheets. This revelation highlights a critical vulnerability, and urgent action is called for to secure these vital conduits of global connectivity. This is indeed a wake-up call for the whole world and for India. Given that a number of subsea cables that serve India and the world pass through these critical regions, we too face a lot of vulnerabilities. This necessitates a dual focus on the geopolitical and commercial dimensions of subsea cable infrastructure. It is imperative to recognize that subsea cable expansion can no longer be regarded solely as a business endeavor. Government oversight is crucial to ensure the geographical redundancies necessary for uninterrupted data services and to make sure that cable disruptions are guarded against. As you all have been reading and noting, a number of major operators have announced big plans for India. And we are fortunate that we have the TRI chairman here, because I'm sure he will be able to throw light on what is the policy environment to encourage India to become a big data hub, which it already is emerging as. However, we must note in this background that India currently does not have the requisite subsea cable repair ships and cable storage depot capacity that we need. So one point that we would like to deliberate in this conference is to see how we can augment such capability. It is also to be noted that no commercial agreements are guaranteed during times of geopolitical conflict and risk. And therefore, we need to have resilient strategies to deal with these kinds of growing challenges. To meet the growing demand and position India as a pivotal and resilient hub, the following steps are essential, amongst others, which I'm sure you will be discussing during the course of today. One, enhancing the geographical diversity of subsea cables so that we have requisite redundancy. Two, positioning India as a global transit hub, leveraging our strategic location in the Indian Ocean. Three, establishing indigenous subsea cable repair facilities, including an India-flagged repair ship and repair capabilities. Four, allowing captive users to establish their own subsea cables and cable landing stations by providing the requisite policy environment that will promote this. By adopting a mission-driven and a strategic approach, we can leverage our unique locational advantages to create jobs, foster a manufacturing ecosystem for submarine line terminal equipment and subsea cables, and establish capabilities for cable repair and monitoring. As we all know, Digital India is already one of the most pervasive digital systems anywhere in the world, and our own requirements also necessitate that we have submarine and cable landing capabilities as we go into the future. In conclusion, it is imperative for India to take proactive measures to safeguard, to expand, and to optimize these systems, ensuring resilience and growth in this critical infrastructure. Thus, it should be possible to say that subsea cables will need governmental stewardship and leadership, but not just leave it to corporate control, because the objective is to build and secure lifelines of connectivity and not just protect commercial interests. I hope and look forward to I hope that today's deliberations will address many of these critical challenges. We will have the opportunity to hear both policy experts, government leaders, as well as industry leaders to speak on this issue. And I'm sure that this will set the stage for making sure that we see a big advancement in this area of capability that is vital for Digital India and for digital communications going forward. Once again, I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for those warm words of welcome and for setting the tone for today's conference. Your insights have underscored the importance of connectivity and provided a perfect start to our discussions today. To provide a global context for our deliberations, I have the privilege to invite Ms. Sonia George, Executive Director of the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, to deliver the context-setting address. Ms. George is a renowned international expert in digital policy and inclusion, leading global efforts to make connectivity affordable and universal. And we are indeed honored to have you here, ma'am, with us today. and to share your perspective on how subsea cable systems relate to digital inclusion and the economy. So ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome Ms. George for the context setting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction, the lovely introduction, and especially thank you for having us here. Thank you to my partners at Broadband India Forum for making this happen. And of course, thank you to all the speakers and our special guests today. It really is an honor to be here in Delhi today to discuss with you this topic. And the reason why I'm here with you is twofold. One, because as the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, we are an organization that cares about connecting everyone in the world, especially in global majority countries, to meaningful connectivity. And as you know, despite the incredible progress that India has made over the years and the last decades, a lot still needs to be done for us to be able to reach development point in the market here in India, where everyone is able to benefit from not just meaningful connectivity, but especially from the opportunity of what digital transformation really brings to us. And so that leads me to start my presentation to all of you today by reminding you of why we are here. And of course, Ms. Aruna already reminded us of a lot of very important steps that were taken and many that need to be taken here in the Indian market. But also, India doesn't stand alone. It stands in a region, it stands in a world that it's highly connected and ever more connected. So every action that you take here in the country not only can be a reference and a model for many other parts of the world, but will definitely also contribute to a more globally connected world and a digital society where everyone can enjoy those benefits. So here in this conference today, we hope that we can increase your level of knowledge on this topic, provide you with some of the tools and the ideas that you all have to advocate for so that the India market becomes a more productive, competitive, interesting market, not just for subsea cables, but for subsea cables to be clearly an element and a starting point for what we want to achieve when it comes to digital connectivity in your society. And so we are talking about having the knowledge and the insights to learn about what is necessary, what can we learn from other experiences. We're also talking about collaboration. That's why we have an incredible lineup of speakers, not just this morning, but throughout the day, that all have their role to play, but also a role that requires collaboration and partnerships to advance what we want to see in the Indian market. And of course, also making sure that the decisions that get made by our regulators here in the country, by policymakers, and your peers in the region are based on evidence and the experience that has proven to be successful in other parts of the world. And so I will be able to share with you some of those experiences with the limited time that I have. But let me start first with this idea that I already mentioned, but I wanted to point out very importantly. Subsea cables, what we call in our sector the first mile of the networks, are very important for multiple reasons that you already heard Ms. Aruna mention, and you will hear many others speak about it. But what I want to point out here today is that it's actually just like a subsea cable going from one point to another point. It's the link and the connections from when you bring subsea cable capacity to a country to what a country can benefit and how in terms of their digital transformation on that journey from a subsea cable to everyone being connected in the country. And that journey is one that includes not just the increase in the capacity. Ms. Aruna mentioned, for example, that in India you have about 17 submarine cables landing in the country. And that's good, but it's not enough. India is one of the largest countries of the world, and for every Indian person to be connected, we need much more capacity. And we need an environment, a policy and regulatory environment that is going to be conducive to that kind of development. But more subsea cables will be the first step to get there, as well as a step to create a market that is more open, more competitive, where more people can benefit, and the more people come online, the better outcomes we will have. So it's about scaling up the possibilities so that everyone can benefit from that kind of connectivity. So digital transformation is not just a buzzword in a vacuum. It's important to note because the reason why this topic is critical for today in this conference is that without the capacity that subsea cables will bring to all of you here in the country, the dream of digital transformation will remain just a dream and will not become a reality in your society. So it's really important that we think about that, and we see it as a very important piece of a very large puzzle with many different parts that each of you have a role to play. And so we at GDIP, the Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, not only conduct research to support policy and regulatory decisions that many regulators and policymakers make around the world, but we ensure that we can learn from that research to inform those decisions. And so we developed these good practices in policy and regulation for subsea cables because many of your peers in many parts of the world came to us and asked us, so what is everyone doing? What are the practices that have been successful in really moving subseas from simply a few to many, to also providing the opportunity of a competitive market, providing the opportunity of existing in an environment that is conducive to more investment, and of course, greater opportunity. And so our research in subsea cables, and you will see later on through some information that we will be sharing with you, that we divided this research into three kind of themes that are critical for subsea cables: competition and innovation, regulatory certainty and ease, and I'm sure you'll hear about these themes throughout the day quite a lot, as well as infrastructure and maintenance. And why are these themes important? Because they actually bring together some of the key questions that need to be addressed, but also some of the key challenges that we need to address not only in India, but in many other markets around the world. And so I'm going to share just a couple of interesting good practices to give you a flavor of some of the things that we will be sharing with you throughout the day. So in terms of competition and innovation, Italy is a very good example of a country that has taken an approach, an open access approach to cable landing options, not just to provide greater flexibility, greater resilience, but especially more competition in the market for many more people to be able to benefit from the event of international connectivity. The European Union as well, when it comes to this topic, has recognized many different types of networks require different kinds of environments. And this is important for us to recognize because, as you will hear from many of the players here on this panel today, different companies have different needs. Different players in the market have different needs. And it's important that we have an environment that is not only flexible, but is accommodating to those needs, to the investment needs, and to the operational needs of different kinds of players, from private networks to public carriers. Regulatory certainty and ease is a very important topic, and when you mentioned the number of cables that India has already welcomed, it always reminds me of the fact of the case of Singapore, that is a country that not only has established a very clear and certain environment from a policy and regulatory perspective, but because of that, a very small country of only about 6 million people, yes, very strategically located, has about 26 submarine cables coming into the country and many more coming. So if you think about size, as you already pointed out in your intervention, Ms. Aruna, you start thinking, well, it's a very different picture, right? A lot more capacity in a much smaller country than in a massive country like India. And it's similar if you compare it with other cases. But regulatory certainty and ease not only create a very clear environment, but attract investment and make sure that operations of subsea cable companies are clear and get you to where you want to be for that journey to digital transformation. India has actually taken some very important steps as well. In fact, TRI, with the most recent proceeding and on licensing, has taken very important recommendations that are based on good practices, and I wanted to highlight that as well. But that's not enough. There's still some more work that needs to be done. Other countries like Australia as well as Tonga have worked a lot on maintenance, and I think here one of the good points to make is about cable protection zones and the importance of them to minimize damage, to minimize the impact of different kinds of accidents that can happen and different kinds of cuts that can happen to subsea cables. So cable protection zones are ways to not just protect the cable, but to protect the area, the geographic area where cables exist so that you prevent the kind of damage and accidents that sometimes happen either because of fisheries or other kinds of issues. So different countries have taken different actions, and there's no reason why India cannot take similar actions in addition to what the country already did in taking very good steps. But again, many more can be taken. And here, I would just highlight some of the summary points that I already made. But again, competition, regulatory certainty, and infrastructure and maintenance efforts, the possibility of making them less restrictive, more open, clear, including, for example, through very clear permitting processes, it's really very important. So, again, why does this matter? It matters because subsea cables are the starting point to not only bringing international connectivity, to bringing high capacity, to support the kind of digital development that you are envisioning for your country, but also the kind of digital development that India can show and model to other countries in the region and in the world. And digital transformation requires the kind of actions and the kinds of decisions from policymakers and regulators now that will secure a future of a digital society that is very important, not just here, but with you, again, as a model to the region. So take a look at the work that we've done, as well as the work of many other partners that are here in this event, and I will be very happy to have a more detailed discussion later on with all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for that enlightening remarks and presentation we had from you. You have certainly clearly outlined the broader context and reminded us how vital inclusive connectivity is for economic development. Your global perspective certainly adds great value as we focus on India's digital economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move into our industry perspective session, where distinguished leaders from the industry will share insights on subsea cable systems and their impact on the digital economy. Each of our speakers brings a unique viewpoint from different facets of the ecosystem. Our first eminent speaker, Mr. Amarjeet Gupta, Group CEO and Managing Director of Lightstorm, is a visionary telecom leader and innovator, is the founder of Lightstorm and a key contributor to India's early mobile and cloud infrastructure development. In fact, he was the one who helped shape Microsoft India's early cloud initiative. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite now Mr. Gupta to share his insights on how subsea cable systems are transforming India's digital infrastructure and economy. So, let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Good morning. And it's a very pleasant experience to be able to stand here just after following up from perhaps what's the largest telecom seminar which happens in Spain, which many of you are aware of. And I have to digress to mention how proud this market should be. Having been a part of it with policymakers sitting in front of us, today India is the shining bright spot for growth of telecom anywhere in the world. At $40 billion, we and Middle East are perhaps one of the two markets which is growing more than 6 to 7%, whereas many, many other markets, including the US and Europe, are struggling to post single-digit small growth. So that's a testimony to the fact that when this industry takes a grip of and seizes the occasion to create an opportunity, we really make it happen. So it feels proud also in the context of this seminar to talk about Subsea, which I think is seized of similar situation, just like telecom was 15 years back. And I'm pretty sure this market will seize this opportunity to make things happen. I also have to mention, in passing, we represent the growth of telecoms here in India, being a startup born out of India over the last 4 years, which not only is prevalent in India, building pipes and connectivity for large hyperscalers and enterprises, but we also have operations across 7 countries and 105 data centers. That's born out of India. So having said that, it's important to lay context of where we are on Subsea, because in my mind it's underattended, sometimes even underspoken, and housed under this industry called telecom services. So if you look at when it started, it's a little bit of history, many of you know that. It started with the British Telecom and what was AT&T, setting up the first cable to transmit telegraph. It moved on to telecommunications, which basically became the preserve of large telecom companies laying cables under the sea to transmit voice. As internet came into force sometime in late 90s, the mix of the data changed, but most of the data was still carried by telecommunication companies, and the ownership was also the preserve of joint consortiums of telecom companies. Come 2000, and many of my colleagues are sitting over here, the cloud arrived. I was a part of a company which built the cloud, and that changed the complexion of what traveled over these cables. I make this point because as an industry, both commercially as well as policy-wise, it's important to recognize whose traffic and who benefits, and who is the beneficiary and who is the recipient. Today, majority of the traffic in Subsea, at least 50 to 60%, is cloud traffic. The rest of the traffic is distributed between the internet and a very vital constituency which we got to protect from a local market standpoint, which is enterprises trying to connect across the seas. These are the 3 categories of traffic. A result of which is what you see in terms of the kind of cables being built and who is building them. So most of the cables today are a mix of telco consortiums, but a lot of my friends here from the cloud industry who run and operate cable across the world, and you'll be surprised how much is the expanse of that. So that's the nature of the shift in this industry. While we locally have built a brilliant telecom industry last 25 years, my submission is this part and the drift happening in Subsea and cable landing is kind of escaped attention, not because of anything else, because of all the priorities we have had so far. That brings me to the point of where we are today. Mrs. Sundarajan mentioned it, but I still want you to consume the expanse of what rides on this infrastructure. There are about 600 cables. As per Goldman Sachs, 90% of data, 80% of world trade, and about $10 trillion of financial transactions, secure government information moves through these cables. That's the impact this infrastructure has. And for all the talk, with no due disrespect, to satellite and what all, this still remains the bedrock of connectivity and digital growth across the world. And it's almost like an unspoken fact that no country today can grow on its own without identifying with the internet and the cloud and the connectivity thereof. Issue is, how do we maintain policy oversight as well as unleash innovation and commercial expertise to be able to grow the sector so that we can meet the new demands this sector poses. So that's kind of a little bit of a journey of where it is. Just to give you another fact, about 1.2 million kilometers of fiber undersea is what it takes to maintain and run the internet across the globe. And these also do have cuts, about 150 cuts a year under the sea sometimes. The other part which I want to underline from a policy standpoint is this is perhaps the only part of quote-unquote telecom infrastructure where the jurisdiction sits across multiple geographies. A mobile coverage is an India mobile coverage. This sits across the A and the B end, and sometimes even a C end, which is different countries, various maritime governance. But the leg of what makes it operative could sit within the jurisdiction of the terrestrial telecom infrastructure. And that makes this complex to administer, difficult to monitor, and sometimes even secretive in its operation. And therefore, I'm mentioning these points so that it can be deliberated upon. The next point is about, so you see basically the summary. The summary is about 95% of data is on these cables. Now let's talk about India. About 20% of global internet traffic, as per some estimates, is essentially consumed or generated out of India. We know about the proliferation of data usage and the enormous volumes that it generates, but that's the kind of quantum. Mr. Sundarajan talked about it. To support that, there's only about 3% of global subsea cables and 2% of global subsea traffic. So clearly, there is an asymmetry over here, and when you start factoring in the age of these cables, in our estimate, in our internal estimate, at least 11 out of the 17 cables are economic end of life today. Physical end of life could be 25 years. And that really poses a challenge and shows the asymmetry of this infrastructure relative to the growth of what we aspire to be. Bake in the fact that we want to get 25% of India's GDP from digital. Telecoms, leave a little bit, is about $40 billion, sir, growing at 6%. The cloud industry is about $25 billion in India. And all of that rides on this infrastructure, which sometimes is underattended and subsumed under quote-unquote telecom services. So the case I'm making here is the case that the vulnerabilities of this kind of infrastructure is multifold. So the picture over here shows you two such cases. One is the vulnerability of internet to what happens outside the shores of India. And this is a real story. I think most of the industry people will tell you that. What's happening in the Red Sea is non-trivial. It's a nightmare. But traditionally, most subsea corridors, strangely, has followed the trade routes of the past. Rarely subsea routes have been built, which is different than the shipping routes. Because back in the day, it was easier to follow the trade routes to be able to lay down your cable and make it work. So for example, the Red Sea, somebody talked about Singapore, Malacca Straits, happens to be great vulnerabilities today for India and its internet opportunity, because all our internet either enters through the west or through the east. And irrespective of how good the infrastructure locally is, if there's a disruption at Red Sea, it pretty much brings down 25% of India's internet in our estimate. And it's not a theory, because it just happened about 2 years back. If that's not bad enough, the ability to monitor, repair the internet fast enough is also beyond control in geographies other than the jurisdiction. That brings it to the point of building diversity and more redundancy to the internet routes to India. So that's the first case I'm making. The second case, as an example, is the picture on the right. That's within control. We have a long coastline in India. Almost 2/3 of India's borders are coastline. But funnily, practically speaking, leave alone Tuticorin and some of the spaces where there are 1 or 2 cables, practically speaking, 95% of subsea today goes into a small 6-kilometer patch, which you can see on the screen, in a place called Versova in Bombay. It's a 6-kilometer of most expensive real estate in India. And this expensive real estate has its own vulnerabilities with respect to the stability, as well as the commercial viability of doing things on their own to expand cable landing systems. The picture over here shows the real a real story. There might be about 15 out of the 17 cables dovetailing into the small patch of land down the seaside called the beach manhole, from which it's armored out to a small building called the cable landing system. Almost obscure, lesser than a telecom tower, and therefore unattended with respect to the vulnerability it poses. So real case of a small fire inside a beach manhole a few years back in Warsaw, brought down 4 cables. So these complexities really need to draw the attention of policymakers and regulators, and our submission is to think of it as a critical national infrastructure governed under the security premise of the telecom policy for sovereign security, as well as licensing norm. We can't hand over these facilities to anybody and everybody, but to be treated as an infrastructure with all the benefits of an infrastructure industry as opposed to telecom, which all of us know, pays healthy taxes back to the government for years, and rightfully so. So that's the case I'm making for looking at infrastructure. The second thing, sir, it does, it unleashes innovation and creativity for the thing that this nation values the most, which is startups. This country has been at the foremost of creative innovation, and that innovation engine has to be unleashed even in telecoms. It takes about about $50,000 per kilometer to lay subsea fibers on an average. It costs much more to lay the same fiber in the city of Bombay. So it's not as if the capital expenses is out of range for startups in India and the sole preserve of large telecom companies who obviously have to have their commercial interests protected. So the case I'm making is to be able to create an infrastructure opportunity for startups and smaller companies to invest, because the scale and magnitude of this investment is not $10 billion. It's a few $100 million. That's the first case. The second is about the landing diversity and the complexity on the ground, which many of us who operate these cables are seized of. Unlike Singapore, unlike Dubai, who are blessed with one sovereign, one city, one law, we are blessed somewhat like the United States, with many states and a federal law, and states have their own law, including environmental laws, which practically transfers the obligation of those who run, manage, and build these systems to take, in last count, about 51 permissions, beyond just the Department of Telecom, including the Home Ministry, including Fisheries, including the Environment Ministry, including local municipalities, including local rights. That really puts a lot of stress with respect to the speed of that simple facility getting built, which, by the way, is not complex at all. This country has built many, many times more complex. So to build, let's say, 50 landing stations in India with all the permissions would be done within a year if all the permissions were due. But the permissions would easily take about 2 years. And when such bottlenecks exist, they are also commercially manifested as moats by commercial interests. And that's the case I'm making for policymakers and regulators to be seized off to get a single window clearance. It's a very euphemism in India, but if our roads can do it, and the highways ministry can do it, so can this. So that's the second case. So I'll sum up by saying that there's some great opportunities for us. The opportunity which Mrs. Sundarajan mentioned, we are fortunate to be in neutral territory and not in anybody's side, and geographically brilliantly connected to be a transit hub. Dubai built its whole case on being a transit for airlines, and the rest follows. It's different in India, but we are perfectly poised between the Pacific and connectivity to Middle East and through to beyond Europe to be able to build this infrastructure as a centerpiece of transit and redundancy for global internet traffic. More so on the back of this enormous growth of data which India is showing, which naturally has got commercial interest from anybody who matters, and we welcome that. So that's the first point. The second point is about the coastline. That's a topic for some other day, but it's also generally felt that whilst wireless and access has been predominantly showcased as the biggest part to be attended, one part which is underattended, other than a few companies who have done brilliant work like Jio on that, is the inherent backbone which transfers this traffic. And that I'm referring to is long-distance fiber. one of the ways to solve it is to just open up subsea capacity for NLD and allow operators to be able to build subsea routes to link up our cities, many of which are actually in the coasts. I'm very glad to say that most of your recommendations, sir, from TRAI points in that direction, and we welcome the ability to transform them into actual legislation. So I talked about the transit hub, the ideal geographic positioning, and the ability to use domestic subsea. The things we got to watch out for is the cable diversity and the capacity available. I mean, it is nobody's case to say that the capacity in India is enough to serve the growth. It's another case to say there is a risk to the number of transit points and the number of cables connecting India by itself, which particularly is amplified with all the geopolitical risks. It's not a secret today that cables today in Asia Pacific land across either one side of a line called the 9-dash line, which is the South China waters, or the other side of the 9-dash line for who actually lays that cable. On the shipping side and people who actually run ships, there are 3 companies which control about 87% of the market. One controlled by the French government, Subcom is a US company, and the third is NEC, who's sitting on the table. And the fourth, potentially, is available to us, regulatory allowed, is a Chinese company. But between these 4 companies, every one of those 300 ships are controlled, managed, and therefore also rationed. So imagine a situation if you ever had to repair a cable, you'd have to call upon those ships and those 4 companies. So that's something which Mrs. Sundarajan referred to as a subject of attention. I think it's high time we paid attention to building resilience for this market. Otherwise, we'll end up building some vulnerabilities. So the cable capacities and the diversity, the landing systems, I think Mrs. Sundarajan referred to it, the concept of open landing systems. I stand for, other than Rahul, as part of the industry which calls itself telecom in India. And I think we have been guilty party in the past in actually holding back, despite very good legislation from the policymakers, on some of the concept of what is called open landing system. To me, it basically means equitable, non-discriminatory access to landing systems, submarine landing system as a facility. And it's talked about in hushed whispers that the legislation and the tariff ceiling cap doesn't help because you can always say no to availability. I don't have capacity. And that's really something which can only get solved if it is treated as an infrastructure outside a telecom service, standing on its own legs to create its own economic value. And I strongly urge for that case because this is an area where I think most part of Europe, most part of Southeast Asia, some parts of Southeast Asia are far ahead of India in actually truly embracing the concept of open and equitable cable landing systems. I have to put an underlying word though, because the users of these cable systems, the cloud providers, the internet providers, also have to find the justification for these infrastructure players to make viable money, because otherwise nobody's going to invest in it. It's a great policy, but it's a non-starter. So that's the last part I want to summarize, and hopefully this deliberation during the day will bring up some of those points. But thank you, BIF, for organizing this and making sure there's a forum available to discuss this. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Gupta, for highlighting the opportunities and challenges from an infrastructure provider's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, our next eminent speaker, Mr. Scott Colling, is Director of Network Investments at Meta, who will share his perspective now. Mr. Colling drives Meta's investments in global connectivity, including undersea cable projects to enhance internet capacity and reach. We certainly look forward to hearing from you, sir, on how global network investments and partnerships in subsea cables are impacting India's digital growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Scott Colling.
Well, first of all, good morning. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with such an esteemed group of people. Obviously, I'm bringing a hyperscaler, a CAP perspective, and also a very global perspective. So as mentioned, my role at Meta is to look after all of the subsea and terrestrial network investment and development across from the west coast of India, all of Europe, all of Africa, all of the Middle East, all of transatlantic, and all of South America, Latin America. Needless to say, long-haul flights are not something that are missing in my life. You know, when I explain to my friends and former colleagues, you know, what I do, generally with a gleam of excitement in my eye, they basically look at me quite puzzled and say, so basically you just sort of mess around with cables all day long? Isn't that a bit boring? And my response back to them is, well, aside from dealing with volcanic eruptions, pirates, military coups, landslides, you know, other, you know, massive events on a regular basis, I guess, yes, it is the most exciting, boring job on the planet and an industry that I wouldn't want to work anywhere else in. I think you know, it's so exciting to be a part of this inaugural forum because this is an area that is still so unfortunately misunderstood. You know, the sentiment is still all too common today that subsea and terrestrial fiber infrastructure is still viewed as a telecom commodity, completely underappreciated, until that is something goes wrong. All we have to do is to look at what happened last year with 7 undersea cable cuts in the Red Sea and off of Africa, and the impact that that had. Entire countries were cut off from the internet for days and in some cases weeks. You know, on top of just making it very difficult to keep in contact with loved ones, you know, it had massive impact on their economies. You know, businesses literally ground to a halt. And that's why we need to continue to raise the value and importance and awareness of subsea cables. You know, that's what's great to see, that people are, and more importantly, national governments, through the help of organizations like BIF and GDIP and regulators, are now beginning to realize the criticality of fiber infrastructure. It wouldn't be an exaggeration at all to say that fiber infrastructure really is the lifeblood of the modern economy. We're constantly hearing about how digital infrastructure, so all these, you know, sexy things, data centers, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, you know, how all these things are entering into new realms and possibilities that, you know, scarcely could have been believed in even 2 or 3 years ago. The pace of change and growth, you know, that we're witnessing is really, you know, at a logarithmic scale. But what everyone completely forgets is that all of that is only possible if network fiber infrastructure keeps up the pace as well. You know, when most people think of Meta or Facebook, you know, they automatically think of a software company that develops many of the most popular apps, you know, in use across the world, which is indeed true. But what many people don't realize is that Meta is also one of the very largest investors in digital infrastructure in the world. In order to serve our nearly 4 billion daily users, we've invested in one of the largest terrestrial and subsea network backbones on the planet, a global content distribution footprint, and literally thousands of caching and direct peering relationships on every continent on Earth. Maybe not Antarctica, but you know, you never know. Meta not only invests, though, to support its own production network traffic, but also in the foundations of the internet itself. We firmly believe that we can only be successful if the ecosystem is also healthy and growing. This is why we invest so heavily in ensuring we're able to cache as much content as possible with local ISPs and partner with telcos across the world to provide settlement-free peering to make sure that costs are reduced and we lower network congestion. In India alone, we have landed 3 subsea cables to date, and that excludes the recently announced Project Waterworth. We've peered with 263 local providers and telcos, built 6 metro hubs or POPs, installed more than 900 Meta network appliance devices for caching content in our partner ISP networks. Just 2 of our existing subsea cable systems in India have been calculated to contribute more than 36 trillion rupees to the APAC economy in the 5-year period between 2021 and 2025. More directly, these multi-$100 million, or in some cases actually multi-billion-dollar cable systems are helping to provide greater diversity, reliability, and capacity to power India's growing internet ecosystem and economic growth. Now, everything I've talked about so far has largely been retrospective. But what about the future, and specifically the prospects for India? Well, I firmly believe that India is poised and has every opportunity to be one of the leading global infrastructure leaders in the coming years. India is already in the top 5 largest economies in the world and rapidly climbing the ranks, has a highly educated and young demographic makeup, has plentiful power, and is advantageously positioned geographically. It's for these reasons and many more that Meta is focused on increasing our investment in India. Project Waterworth, which if you look at it on a map, is really sort of centered on India. So it is a W shape, and that center peak of the W is in India, with landing stations on both the east and west coast. And this is just one tangible example of the importance, the future importance that we see in India. And I can assure you there's much more to come. Now, some of you may be asking yourselves or each other, why should we be so excited about boring cables? You know, particularly in the case of Waterworth, a private Meta cable. How does that help accelerate India's digital infrastructure growth? How does that support jobs and skill development? You know, this guy should be talking about data centers, you know, hosting AI training and an inference, not just cables. Well, data centers do indeed create hundreds, if not thousands, of construction jobs and employ almost an equal number of high-skilled people thereafter. Cable and terrestrial fibers, not nearly to the same degree. Well, when all companies, not just Meta, are looking, you know, at where they're going to place or invest in their data centers, there's really 3 basic things that we're looking at. Number 1 is power availability, for which India is very well positioned. The second is an attractive regulatory environment, and I know we're going to speak a lot more about that on the upcoming panel discussions. And the third is reliable connectivity. A DC is just a very expensive building with even more expensive equipment inside that is completely useless if it doesn't have reliable connectivity to anything. The other thing is a data center can be built in approximately 2 years, give or take. A transoceanic cable system takes no less than 5. And unfortunately, that timeline is only lengthening due to increasing permit and licensing regulation. If I have an 8,000 point-to-point transoceanic system starting tomorrow, I can guarantee you where I'm going to spend 80% of my time and effort. And that's going to be in 24 miles, territorial waters at either end. It is absolutely critical that we create an attractive environment so that companies don't just have to come, but they want to come because they know that there's that reliability, that confidence in the process, and in the dependency of timelines. So that means if you want to have a thriving data center investment and development in the next 5 years, you need to be building subsea and terrestrial connectivity, which is a must-have prerequisite now. Meta's connectivity investments in India are helping generate the momentum and indeed help strengthen confidence in the Indian ecosystem as a whole to help encourage that growth and development. As I said at the start, almost every facet of the economy is underpinned by resilient national and international connectivity. India's growing recognition through the efforts of organizations like this, combined with its many competitive advantages, is why I believe that the future for India is so bright in the broader digital infrastructure space. Now, this doesn't mean that it's a given that India will become a digital infrastructure leader, but recognizing that connectivity infrastructure is not some commodity that can be over-regulated but is instead critical national infrastructure that should be fostered, promoted, and made more open, is an incredibly important first step. As I said, you want people to want to come, not have to come. Now, the development of AI has been so rapid and dynamic, no one can say for sure what the final impact is going to be on network architectures or topologies. But one thing I can almost guarantee is that the demands on terrestrial backbone networks and power density of network midpoints and content distribution POPs is going to increase considerably. Taking national steps to facilitate easier investment in and operation of terrestrial capacity and improved diversity will be of equal importance to that of subsea. You know, the terrestrial backbones in subsea really are symbiotic in terms of developing and fostering that overall digital ecosystem. And for Meta, we're actively looking at options now to facilitate this within India in anticipation of a range of future growth scenarios. India lies at the natural crossroads of East and West. It has all the necessary ingredients to seize the opportunity that an ever-increasingly connected world demands. And with the right government and regulatory direction and prioritization, I have no doubt whatsoever that India will flourish even faster. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you all for inviting me to speak. It's been a great honor, and I look forward to spirited discussions on the upcoming panels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Coling, for sharing Meta's perspective. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our next eminent speaker, Mr. Thomas Ota, is Senior Director of Submarine Sales at NEC. He is an expert in submarine cable technology with rich experience in deploying undersea network worldwide, and will shed light on the technological advancements and innovations in the subsea cable systems. We would now like to invite Mr. Ota to kindly take the stage and share his thoughts on the latest developments in submarine cable infrastructure. Let's put our hands together to welcome him for his address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to be here and make some speech in front of such a distinguished audience. Thank you very much for inviting me today. Today, I will talk about what NEC is doing in this submarine cable industry, and also talks about something about NEC's view about Indian submarine cable market. Okay, before starting, this is the typical submarine cable network overview. This is a really simplified sketch of what is submarine cable network. We have we are manufacturing products which consist of a submarine cable network, such as repeaters and branching unit, also submarine cable itself. And also, we are manufacturing the terrestrial equipment, terminal station equipment, such as power feeding equipment and submarine cable, submarine line terminal equipment. And this is our core business. I mean, the manufacturing of products is our core business. But in order to supply those products, we are also doing marine installation or terrestrial installation on a turnkey basis. This is what NEC is doing. Basically, we are doing all of those things. And this slide describes what is NEC's role and what is the NEC's position in the submarine cable ecosystem. We are doing, as I said, we are doing products manufacturing, and together with our subcontractors, we are also doing cable laying, and also before installation, we also do survey activities and permitting works, and also civil works in terminal station equipment or land section of the total network. And our major customers are telcos, traditionally, and also in the recent years, big techs such as Meta, Google, Amazon, those companies are also our very important customers. And there are some independent cable developers such as Lightstorm. And those submarine cable owners basically providing services to enterprise customers or government organizations or consumers. And also, as somebody mentioned in this session, maintenance of the submarine cable is also an important factor in submarine cable ecosystem. Those services are provided mainly by cable ship companies and also zone maintenance agreements. So again, NEC is the turnkey system supplier in the submarine cable ecosystem. This slide shows a high-level outlook of our industry or market. This chart shows global trends of used international bandwidth, including past record and also a future forecast. As it shows, the overall annual growth of international connectivity is getting moderate recently, but it's still about 30% annual growth rate. It's really a demanding market, and we see still a lot of demands in future. And in order to meet those very strong demand of international capacity or connectivity, technology side is also have some significant advancements recently. This graph shows fiber pair count in transatlantic cables. Previously, the typical submarine cable fiber pair count was, as shown in this here, 4 fiber pair, 6 fiber pair, 8 fiber pair, something like that. But in the most recent transatlantic cables has a 24 fiber pair. This is a significant increase of the submarine cable capacity. And more than that, this is the most latest technology which NEC is really promoting. This is what we call multi-core fiber solution. Usually, the submarine optical fiber has a single core to carry the optical signals. But in this new technology, we can carry the optical signals through 2 cores in 1 fiber. That means we can double the total system capacity doubles. We can double the capacity with the same cable, but fiber itself has a double capacity. So this is really significant technological advancement, and we believe it can really contribute to the a very strong connectivity and capacity demand of submarine cable system. And this is NEC's recent supply records. We have over 60 years of experience, and we have supplied more than 400,000 kilometers of submarine cable globally, and more than 6,000 repeater units was supplied so far. And this map, as this map shows, our typical or major supply record so far was in Asia Pacific. I mean, Transpac cable or Southeast or region from Singapore to Japan. Those are our major fields so far. But in the last several years, we have expanded our supply record footprint in the Indian Ocean as well. And this is our great honor to contribute to the connectivity expansion in India through Kani Cable Project and also KLI projects. And also from international cable, we are just finishing the construction of missed cable. So we are accumulating our experience in this country, in India, and we have a dedicated submarine cable team in our subsidiary companies, NEC Corporation India. So together with them, we really would like to expand our experience or supply record in this country more and more. This slide is what NEC Corporation as a whole is doing as a business. Our business and technologies spans from the submarine cable system to the satellite communication technology, namely from the ocean floor to outer space. This is what we are emphasizing recently. This slide simply shows our manufacturing locations. All products are manufactured in Japan with Japanese quality. And lastly, this is our corporate identity, or we recently defined what is the purpose of our business, and this is the purpose of NEC's business. NEC creates the social values of safety, security, fairness, and efficiency to promote a more sustainable world where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential. This is, thank you very much. For this purpose, and I believe submarine cable business really fits this purpose, and I am very happy to do this business for this purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sota, and it is certainly fascinating to hear about the cutting-edge technologies and innovation driving modern subsea cable systems. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, our eminent speaker, Mr. Rahul Watts, Chief Regulatory Officer at Bharti Airtel, will offer the telecom operator's perspective. He is a leading regulatory and strategy expert in India's telecom sector and has been deeply involved in shaping policies around communications infrastructure. And we are certainly eager to hear your views, sir, on subsea cables from a telecom and regulatory standpoint. Let's put our hands together to welcome, sir.
Thank you, Broadband India Forum, TV, and Anil sir. Distinguished leaders on the dais, Chairman Lahoti, Madam Sandarajan, and other speakers. It's been quite a stirring conversation till now. Amarjeet has really fired up the business models as he's challenging the domestic business. I am sure he's getting ready to fire up on the international part also, and competition is always good for the consumers and for the sector. But I do agree with him largely in the sense that India is the largest data generating society today, and it's important that we shore up our investments given the amount of data consumption we are having today. While there are cache servers today, as was highlighted by my friend from Meta, but we do still require capacities to run all over. So the way I have tried to do is to give you a perspective of what Airtel is doing. Even though Amarjeet feels my cables are dying, they are not dying. They're going fully alive, and we are going to roll out for years together. But I want to give a slice in perspective of where we are and what is it that we are planning, and what do we need in the policy horizon to really shore up this entire sector. So here we are. We have got, as Airtel, global presence, of course. We have got around 4 lakh route kilometers. We have got 10 large data centers. We've got almost 4 hyperscalers, including with some of the friends who are here. We have got investments in 34 large cable systems across the globe. And of course, we have got large CPaaS partnerships which carry the traffic, today globally for us. We started the investments not today. TV will be aware of this maybe 25 years ago, where we made the first investment in the international cable business. We built the first private submarine cable connecting India to Singapore using an 8-pair fiber cable system. And we have made investments in 11 different sort of cable systems with over $800 million investments over this time. We also have large term capacity agreements with 34 other cables which are running across the world to be able to sustain the traffic we are generating. We are also doing 4 projects which are under deployment right now, and more investments are queued up given the surge of data centers which is coming towards India. These are some of my recent investments. We are tying up all the way from Singapore, going all the way up to Japan, a very strategic area given the geopolitical concerns which are today running across the world. Of course, we are coming from the oft-repeated route of France down to Singapore again, for the reason simply because there's a large amount of data traffic which still happens across these geographies. Of course, we have got investments in Africa as Airtel, and we are trying to ring-fence Africa completely. So we are covering Africa completely now, from one end, and then another investment is going into Africa, trying to cover Africa from the other end, going all the way up to Europe. So this is the large sort of capacities available. My friend told from NEC about the transatlantic capacity. So there is a large capacity in transatlantic already available. So that is not of a lot of concern for us. It's more the traffic from Europe to Asia, which really takes us to more investments. So why is India becoming a regional hub? I think this is already covered, so I can move faster. We are at a very prime location in terms of the position in the globe, so we can move, get the right position. There is a growing internet penetration. We are the largest data consuming society now. And of course, there's a huge amount of digital growth which is still left in India. And that's what is really spurring this investments and making this into a regional hub. So what are the opportunities for India? I think some of the things, given I got very greedy knowing that the TRI chairman is coming, so I thought I should have something to ask for and not let him leave without the industry ask. So I think if we really want to spur up investments, as what Amarjit said, and I completely agree that we need to have more fire in this sector, I think we should really consider at how do we incentivize this sector to go ahead further. Can we look at, for example, looking at the license fees on the cable landing systems? Can we have a look at that? There is a massive recommendation which came from TRA after a very good consultation, but not a lot has happened after that, right? And there's a sort of a glut out there, very, very good recommendation, very solid, rationale and logic for that recommendation, but really we are, stuck up in that situation, which I think needs to be pushed, which we are also trying. Amarjit also mentioned about the 51 approvals. It's a fact. It's a huge pain, trying to get a system. To get even, and by the way, the biggest problem, which I think was not mentioned to you, the biggest problem in cable landing station is the fishing trawlers. Fishing trawlers break my cable all the time, right? And that's the biggest pain point for us. Now, to get a repair ship to India, I need to end up getting approval, which takes me 6 months. To get the ship inside India, it requires persons from the Department of Telecom to be present on the ship when the maintenance is going on, right? It's such a large and long process to get it. You have to go to Ministry of Home, you have to go to Ministry of Defense. It has got simplified, but still it takes nearly 2 to 3 months to get an approval. So it's a lot of severe pain area. There is a huge problem on the custom duty front because there's a notification which came, from the customs. Where are you repairing? Is it in the economic interest zone, or is it outside? Is it in the territorial waters? And this confusion, the overall costing of what you're going to do completely goes skew, right? If for repairing I end up blowing up my money, then where is it that I am even going to invest in a cable at all? So this sort of clarity, and we have been in discussion with Ministry of Finance for a large part, trying to resolve these issues. There is this strange requirement of a flag change requirement, because the ships have to carry a flag, when they are doing repairs. And there's a mandate, as to how the vessels should carry the flag. So these are small things, but it's such a painful exercise to even repair cables. And so it becomes like a journey if a cable fault happens, right? So these are small things, but very big for this business, which needs to be rectified at a fast pace. We completely agree that we need to have a Make in India and an indigenous cable repair vessel. Time has come that we should have our own capabilities. There are limited number of players. And this entire process, because it's a foreign ship, because there are foreign people, and so we have to go to MOD and MOH for approvals, I think if this is the only way out, I think this is what we should then immediately pursue, right? Rather than, because you are actually holding up the traffic, which can just go down anytime. Of course, we need to also set up our own repair and cable installation expertise, which is not an expertise which we have in-house in India right now, and that's something I think as a country we should definitely try and consider. I think this is what also Amajit mentioned. I think we need to have a separate cable corridor in India, right? Because the damage which happens largely happens because the routes used for laying the cables is also similar to a lot of fishing trawlers, for example, when you're near the coast. So maybe a time has come to really earmark an area where you can get the cable inside, so that it becomes a little bit of an easy maintenance situation for everybody. We have to declare the cables as national strategic assets. If 4 cables or 5 cables go down today, the entire internet traffic can go down. And we were nearly at that point around 2 years back, because the cable ship was not being allowed to enter the country. So I think it's high time we declared it as a strategic asset. The telecom law provides now, the new telecom law provides provisions where we can declare certain assets to be of that nature, and I think this is what we have been pursuing with DOT. And of course, we require some tax exemption on the cable importation, because the right kind of cable is necessary for us to be able to build on to our capacity. So these are some of the things I felt are necessary to really shore up the investments, in this particular sector. So short and sweet, I thought this is what I wanted to present from Airtel. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Watts, for sharing your perspectives. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our industry perspective session of the inaugural session. And we are now honored to invite our guest of honor, Shri A. Robert Jared Ravi, Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited. Shri Ravi is a veteran leader in India's telecommunications landscape, heading the nation's public sector telecom company, which also manages key international cable links. We are indeed honored to have you here with us today, sir. And may I invite you, sir, to kindly share your remarks on the importance of subsea cable systems in strengthening India's communication networks and digital services. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome our guest of honor.
Respected Chairman Rai, the Chairperson, BIF, dignitaries on the stage, ladies and gentlemen. It's really interesting, and I'm really proud to be associated with this first of its kind subsea cable systems conference. Why is it so important now? What is the context behind it? Now, when we see about the before we go into the subsea system itself, where are we today? Our usage in data, the data consumption, we have been growing to be one of the largest consumption. We are reaching close to 20 GB per user per month. Now, with the usage and data consumption growing, the next immediate thing is how is going to be our latency. We are looking at low latency networks. We are also looking at, with AI coming in, how AI is going to play a role, especially in the edges of the computing. And along with it, the cloud computing, again a distributed thing across the country and across the world. When such a connectivity comes in, as we all know, 99% of the traffic is being carried by these subsea cables. And where are we positioned today? That's this conference needs to get to know and analyze a bit more. Of course, today we have close to 17. Of course, we had the one they recently made, 18 landing stations, 14 distinct places. We have a good capacity of around 140 TB. As Raghu was telling, still we have enough capacity. Capacity constraints are still we are not reached, but still we have a strategic geographical location. How do we exploit it for the utilization of the digital economy? Now, from BSNL, we also try to connect the remotest corners with the support of the government. We were able to have this CANI and the KLI cable connected. I'm proud to say that today, if someone visits Lakshadweep, almost all streets and all homes are wired on fiber. It's 100% FTTH each houses. This is the amount of power such cables bring in when we have the connectivity, when we are away from the whole satellite communication stuff. So that is where BSNL is trying to do from the ocean depths to Himalayan heights. We are connecting securely, affordably, and reliably. Said that, on the government side, what more needs to be done? We are at a very, very interesting piece of technological revolution. Our digital transformation is really happening at a very brisk and a very fast pace. Now, the next few years, maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, the internet itself is going to see a complete sea change. What is this sea change? We are talking about from Web 2 to Web 3. Web 2 was most of a centralized network, whereas your Web 3, we are going to concentrate more on decentralized network, decentralized autonomous organizations, decentralized storage facilities, decentralized data centers, and again, connectivity across continents. How fast we are connecting towards, what is going to be the latency behind it. With these structured around, a completely new area, a new option comes across for the government, for the industry, and for the country as a whole, to how we can exploit more to become more of a digital economic power. An opportunity has given, has opened up. If we are just going to be concentrating of our own capacity, requirements, it's only one portion of the entire sphere. Now, when we move into such networks, these nodes are going to be self-validated nodes. And the content, because the largest data consumption happens in our country. We are the largest content creators. These content creators, how are we safeguarding in the internet, in the international thing? Can we have more number of the country's content management system be more secure and transparent, which can lead to a completely new way of how internet transfigures the so-called IPFMS system. The interplanetary file system gives the owner the ownership of its own content. It can travel across the web, wherever it wants, but still it flags the content ownership tag through what we have, the NFTs, the digitals. And how secure is our data? Because in the centralized data, we know what is happening today. The use of secure distributed ledgers with blockchain is going to again ensure whatever data we put in is most secure and transfers across the globe securely. With this opportunity available, I think India is positioned well to use this at least in the Far East, a regional player of this development, of which the subsea cable systems will definitely see a complete sea change. Not only we are talking about infrastructure for cable laying, how are we going to ensure security, the sovereign data sovereignty of which that resides within our country. With all this set in, the need of the hour is like what we have innovations happening in various figures. Can we look at some sort of innovation in this sphere where our terminals, our methodology of cable laying completely can change differently? We have enough capacity. Now, how can we still, because we are strategically located, we have a huge coastline, we have connectivity in the east and the west, which we can exploit. We are more than 5 different new routes, which is going to be commissioned in 2025. The IAX, the Africa Pearl, the Raman. How are we going to use this most effectively for the development and economic power of the country is required to be thought about. I'm very sure conferences like this can help in reigniting the thought process. Maybe a different vertical can emerge in the startups, which can just focus on this particular area. I think the chairman is around, Chairman Trai. We also need to have, can we have some sort of more regulatory liberal in this particular area? CLS today is close to duopoly, where there are constraints placed on the effective utilization of the capacity. There's a need to even free it up. Probably we should think of some sort of a common platform system where any players can come in and the lead players lie below the level and they can still contribute the main activity of the submarine activities, while the usage and effectiveness of runs on the common platform. This will actually play a vital role in our edge computing. We are also talking about fog computing. This concept of the fog and edge in the Web3 world, with AI, with a lot of data flying around, we're also talking about how we do real-time analytic on the AI on the fly. Now we talk about big data analytic, gathering the data in a single place and then do it. We're also talking about small data where we can push this to the edges. Have this fog computing come in, have federated learning. And how can we use this particular and leverage this information to the best utilization? And then the content for the world can thrive. I don't find a reason why India can lead this challenge, lead this innovative for the world, where the entire content is driven from the country. I wish the conference grand success. We would like to know what is going to be the key step forwards that the conference, at the end of the conference, we are able to take. BSNL is going to play a crucial role in ensuring this next generation, how we take this forward and make India a true digital power. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for your insightful remarks and for underlining BSNL's initiatives in expanding the connectivity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my proud privilege to invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji, Honorable Chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, for the Chief Guest address. Shri Lahoti ji is a distinguished leader who at the helm of India's telecom regulatory body, guiding policy and regulations in our dynamic telecom sector. Under his stewardship, TRAI has been pivotal in fostering innovation, competition, and consumer interest in the digital communications arena. So we are indeed very honored with your presence, and let's put our hands together to welcome our honorable chief guest for the inaugural address.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Chairperson BIF, Ms. Aruna Sundarajan ji, and all the distinguished dignitaries on the dais, all the esteemed representatives from industry, government bodies, media, in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I congratulate Broadband India Forum and Mr. T.V. Ramachandranji for organizing the first International Subsea Cable System Conference in India. This event covers one of the most significant and contemporary topics owing to the immense strategic and commercial relevance of the global subsea cable system. We have been hearing about this from all the leaders of the industry. It's a privilege for me to deliver an address to this distinguished gathering on the impact of subsea cable systems on the Indian digital economy. India's rapid digital adoption, as we know, has been driven by government's commitment to technology as a key enabler of achieving national objectives, combined with tremendous private sector innovation and investment to promote digital access and usage in a variety of areas. India's telecom sector has witnessed remarkable growth in the recent past, emerging as one of the largest and most dynamic markets in the world. This transformation has been driven by rapid technological advancements, policy reforms, and increasing consumer demand. As of December 2024, India has attained an overall tele-density of 85%, with urban areas reaching 131% and rural regions achieving 58%. There are 944 million broadband users and 1.15 billion mobile users in the country. India has also seen the fastest growth of 5G rollout, which started in October 2022. Since then, over the last 2 years, telecom service providers have rapidly expanded their 5G services and have covered all the states and union territories. During January 2025, there were 266 million 5G wireless data subscribers with 5G data usage of 5.61 million terabytes per month and overall mobile data usage of 19 million terabytes. The average 5G data usage per month per subscriber was close to 23 megabytes, which is closing the gap with 4G. Additionally, data consumption per fixed line broadband connection ranges between 250 to 400 gigabytes per month. The surge in data usage is undeniable and a positive sign, and it is driven primarily by consumer preferences for data-intensive applications. The internet traffic in India has grown multiple times in line with the global trend. This exponential increase in demand for internet services has led to a corresponding surge in the international traffic. Submarine cables form the foundation of global communication, linking continents and connecting markets. As per a report, the reports are varying in their estimates, There are 650 submarine cable systems, and of which 570 are in service and another 81 are planned. The number of cable systems is constantly increasing. Submarine cables are vital digital communication infrastructure. All the speakers have emphasized this particular aspect. These cables carry approximately 99% of internet traffic and support critical services and are vital for any country's communication grid and equally vital for business and economic operations. Recognizing the critical nature of submarine communication cables, the United Nations has in 2010 described these as critical communication infrastructure. With the changing dynamics of geopolitical situation, these critical infrastructure are new strategic assets in the ocean, and these could be vital for any nation. India plays a key role in the global submarine cable network. India hosts around 17 international subsea cables across 16 distinct landing stations. In recent past, that is Myanmar, Malaysia, India, Singapore transit submarine cable has successfully landed in Mumbai and Chennai. Very recently, the SMW6 or SEA-ME-WE6 cable landed in Mumbai and Chennai just very recently. As of end of 2024, the total lit capacity and activated capacity of these cables stood at 193 Tbps and 148 Tbps respectively. Multiple next-generation submarine cable systems such as IAX, IEX, 2 Africa Pearl, Blue Raman, and the Meta's recent announcement about the project Butterworth are due to be, which of course will come in years to come, but many of these are due to become operational in 2025. And once the new systems are fully operational, India's data transmission capacity is projected to increase multi-fold with additional routes. But is it good enough? Ms. Aruna Sundarajan emphasized that we have only 1% of the world's cable landing station, which needs to increase by 10x. And Ms. Sonia emphasized, quoted the example of Singapore, which has 26 cable systems on a small territory. So these is evident that India has to do much more for improving its submarine cable infrastructure. As per reports, global submarine communication cable industry stood at $3,644 million in 2023 and is projected to witness a CAGR of 6.2% between 2024 and 2034. India's own submarine communication cable market is expected to witness a CAGR of 19.4% in the forecast period and hold a considerable market share in South Asia and Pacific region through 2034. From design to development, a submarine cable can take over 2 years to become operational. This timeline is influenced by a combination of factors, including funding, permissions and regulatory requirements, environmental and operational requirements. Further, disruptions to submarine cable systems can have far-reaching consequences, including economic impact, security concerns, and denial of internet access to millions of people. In 2023, over 200 submarine cable repairs were reported globally, highlighting the vulnerabilities of this critical infrastructure. To address the growing challenges and ensure the continued resilience of this critical infrastructure, the ITU and the International Cable Protection Committee, ICPC, have jointly launched the International Advisory Body for submarine cable resilience. The newly formed international advisory body, comprising 40 members from around the world, including ministers, heads of regulatory authorities, senior experts in telecommunication, etc., will work towards promoting best practices across governments and industries to improve cable resilience, reduce risks of damage, and ensure swift repair and deployment of these vital systems. The advisory body will also provide strategic guidance to address challenges related to increasing traffic, aging infrastructure, and growing environmental threats to submarine cables. Submarine cable installation, operation, and repair is complex marine operation requiring specially designed ships and highly skilled engineers. The approval for laying and maintaining submarine cables and cable landing stations involves multiple clearances. The figure of 51 clearances has been cited, including security clearances, and is certainly a time-consuming process. Also, there is a need for Indian-flagged vessel for submarine cable operations and maintenance. This has been emphasized by a number of speakers. To facilitate submarine cable systems in India, TRAI made recommendations in June 2023 to the government on the licensing framework and regulatory mechanism for submarine cables landing in India. Through these recommendations, TRAI proposed comprehensive framework to streamline the licensing, operational, and regulatory mechanism for submarine cable landing in India. This includes cable landing stations categorization into main cable landing station, that is main CLS, and cable landing station point of presence, that is CLS POP, requiring different regulatory obligations. The owner of main CLS would seek all the permissions or clearances related to submarine cable landing in their cable landing stations, while the owners of CLS POP would be required to fulfill the security and regulatory license obligations. Another aspect is allowing ILD or ISP category A with international internet gateway licensees to extend their dark fiber in the submarine cable from the main CLS to their respective CLS POP location. For infrastructure readiness, TRAI proposed to establish cable depots, which has been mentioned by speakers before me, along both coastlines, and incentivize Indian flagged repair vessels through financial models and port authority partnerships. TRAI has recommended to constitute a committee to study and recommend the different financial models for Indian flagged repair vessels, including possible incentive from government. It has also been recommended by TRAI that essential services status be accorded to cable landing stations and submarine cable operations and maintenance services. And also, this critical communication infrastructure may be notified as critical information infrastructure under National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center. This requirement has also been highlighted by speakers before me. International submarine cables should be allowed to carry domestic traffic. This is also another important recommendation which has been given by TRAI on dedicated fiber pairs that are provisioned between two Indian cities. For process simplification, TRAI has recommended online clearances related to environment impact assessment and coastal regulation zone for submarine cables and cable landing stations, among others. Ms. Sonia highlighted the example of cable protection zones in Australia, and Mr. Rahul Vats mentioned regarding cable corridors. I think these are some other aspects which should be looked into in the near future, besides many other things which have been highlighted by speakers before me. Besides these recommendations to further streamline the authorization framework, TRAI has recommended in September 2024 as part of the framework for service authorization that long-distance service authorization by merging national long-distance and international long-distance service authorization should be introduced. The TRAI's recommendation on the licensing framework and regulatory mechanisms for submarine cable landing of June 2023 were duly included while formulating the scope of NLD and ILD services under the long-distance service authorization. Accordingly, the long-distance service authorization under the new authorization framework may be permitted to establish ILD gateway as well as cable landing stations for both domestic and international submarine cables, and to carry domestic traffic through submarine cables connecting two coastal cities in India. In regard to the cable landing station, TRAI in its recommendations on the very recent recommendations on the terms and conditions of network authorization to be granted under the Telecommunication Act, which were delivered in February 2025, viewed that there is a need for introducing cable landing station provider authorization with a broad scope of providing access facilitation to the essential facilities at cable landing station, and co-location to facilitate access to the cable landing station to the eligible service authorized entities. In case the central government deems it fit, it may send a reference to TRAI in this regard. We have just heard about from Ms. Sonia regarding the example of open access in Italy, and Mr. Amarjit also mentioned regarding the open equitable access. I'm sure these recommendations will facilitate movement in that direction. As a regulator, TRAI is contributing towards shaping policies for a robust telecom infrastructure and fostering innovation through effective regulatory framework to drive technological advancement and inclusive growth. The future of India's submarine cable system lies in expanding the landing stations, ensuring better redundancy and lower latency. New routes will enhance connectivity, will reduce dependence on existing hubs. The adoption of high-capacity technologies along with sustainable energy solutions will future-proof India's data ecosystem. A strategic, security-conscious, and innovation-driven approach will position India as a major global data hub with all these initiatives. At the end, I would like to thank Broadband India Forum for hosting the International Conference on Subsea Cable Systems in India, and I extend my best wishes for its success. Thank you all.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for your very inspiring address. Your words have certainly provided a visionary conclusion to this session, highlighting how supportive policy and regulatory frameworks will harness subsea cables for India's digital advancement. We are certainly deeply grateful to you, sir, for inaugurating this conference with your insights and for your constant guidance as also as the Honorable Chief Guest today. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the close of this session, I would like to call upon Mr. Shivnath Thukral, Vice President, Broadband India Forum, to deliver the closing remarks and propose the vote of thanks. Mr. Thukral is a respected figure in the digital communications arena and has been instrumental in BIF's initiatives to drive digital inclusion. May I invite you, sir, for the closing remarks and the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I was just wondering, while I was reading what TV Sir has kindly shared with me, that this is the first ever broadband conference, the digital kind of conference that you're talking about of a sector which has so much importance. So clearly they did well without any conference so far. But time has come now, I think, for this industry to recognize what every stakeholder on the stage could bring together. And I think having the regulator on stage with all the private sector participants is a great testimony of the credibility of BIF to bring together such a critical group to define the future of digital India and digital world as we know of it. Respected dignitaries on the stage, I won't name all of them, you've already heard from them, but I wanted to really, really thank all of you for making time and for spending your valuable morning with your great insights and experience, and from across the world as well. So clearly it's a great honor and privilege for me in my role as a BIF member to thank all of you and thank all our speakers, all the friends from media and all other attendees. Whatever you mention about the relevance of this industry is not enough, given the fact that at one time in our world when the economy was protecting power stations and telephone exchanges, it looks like time has come now to give equal focus to this vital digital communication infrastructure, as Mr. Lahoti said. India clearly is strategically placed to play that role, not just as a recipient, but also as a fuel, as a driver of the industry as we move forward, given the potential of $1 trillion worth of economic value creation that we are all talking about. So that's why we are all here, and I think I like the slide that you showed from Lightstorm about Versova becoming the most expensive per square kilometer property just because of the landing station that you have. Maybe we need to diversify onto the east and west coast further. But given that it's only limited to 5 cities, shows the potential that we can do in India. I thought when BIF proposed this summit, I had gotten into this industry about 2 years ago as a Meta employee as well, but when BIF started talking about this summit, I was like, yeah, it's an idea whose time has come, and I think, TV, sir, this is like a good way to kind of acknowledge what this industry could do. But individual thanks first off to the chairman of TRAI, Mr. Lahoti. You've been a great guide, not just to us in our company capacity, but as someone who the industry looks up to. And I can tell everybody in this room for being very transparent and accessible to share his thoughts and ideas. So thank you so much for coming here and taking time out and gracing us as the chief guest. And I think everybody's taken a huge inspiration. Your recent consultation papers, as Rahul also pointed out, are a good testimony of what this sector holds. Mr. Robert Ravi, CMD, BSNL, thank you, sir. Congratulations on your new role as well. And good to have you and your deep insights. And given the fact that you're a hardcore industry person who has seen every aspect of it, thanks for sharing your experience as well. Also grateful to my Meta colleague, actually, who's flown in from Brazil, Scott Colling, although lives in Britain, but has flown in from Brazil just now to kind of be with us. Thank you for sharing the thoughts on Meta's investment, especially Project Waterworth, which I think is going to redefine the space of infrastructure that we've been talking about. And also, a huge amount of thanks to Rahul, a fellow colleague in the industry, and Rahul, as always, was pretty direct and honest about what this industry needs to kind of fix as we move forward. And also Amarjit Gupta, Group CEO and MD Lightstorm, for taking time out. And Mr. Thomas New, thanks for coming in and sharing your views as well. I wanted to thank Ma'am Aruna Sundarajan, who has been a guiding light for us, for BIF and for the industry as well, for your insight, and Sonia for flying down all the way from Boston to be with us and giving us your thoughts as well. Last but not the least, the BIF group, which of course is led by none other than TV Sir. Thank you, TV Sir, for doing this summit. Brigadier Anil Tandon, Debashish, and many, many others in the BIF group who are driving this initiative and industry leading initiatives. Mr. Shashidharan, MD of Bharat Exhibitions, for supporting BIF in hosting this summit. Overall, I think it's been a great start. The next 2 sessions are going to be very meaningful and substantive, so requesting you to all stay back after a short tea break. But once again, thank you all, thank you BIF, and thank you all to all the speakers for being with us this morning. Thank you. Oops, sorry.
Thank you, sir. And before we close the proceedings of the session, I would request Ms. Aruna Sundarajan to kindly do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude to our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Anil Kumar Lahoti ji, Chairman TRAI. Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Mr. Shivnath Thukral to do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude to our guest of honor, Mr. Robert Gerard Ravi. We present to Mr. Rahul Vats.
You have to work for it, yeah.
To Mr. Thomas Ota. To Mr. Thomas. To Mr. Scott Coling after that. To Mr. Amarjeet Gupta. And to Ms. Sonia George. And now for the group photograph of the panel, I also invite Mr. T.V. Ramachandran and Brigadier Anil Tandon to kindly come up and join the panelists, dignitaries for the group photograph. Requesting everyone to kindly come forward for the group photograph, please. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, let's once again put our hands together to thank our honorable chief guest, our guest of honor, and dignitaries for the wonderful session that we had. And we invite you to join us for a quick 10 minutes tea break. We are already running behind schedule. We would request everyone to kindly join us back inside as soon as possible. You may kindly carry your cup of tea and coffee back to the tables so that we can go ahead with the proceedings as soon as possible. Thank you.